On today's show, we talk about major changes coming to the Monster Hunter series, play a new trivia game, and finally talk about our weapons of choice. So don't forget your hot drinks as we start this episode of the Palibros. What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of The Palibros, a podcast where a group of friends come together to talk about anything and everything Monster Hunter. Of course, I am one of your hosts, and the first to cart, Patrick Jovez. Alongside me, we have the... Shit, I didn't forgot what you are. We have the Mix-Set Maniac, Brian.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm used to it. Good evening, everyone.
Up next, we have the Hunting Horn Elitist, Max.
Greetings.
And, of course, rounding us out, we have He's So Tasty, Ryan.
I'm so tasty.
That you are.
Ooh.
What's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? What a royal fuck up right at the beginning. It started out great.
I mean, it totally worked out. I mean, that's the problem with the mix set. You just never know what I am. So
Yeah.
That's true.
it's okay.
He's true to his namesake.
Mhm.
All right, I gotta let you guys know that I had such a blast playing or editing the podcast and recording the last episode. I had so much fun just listening to all our answers and reliving all these memories that we had. And I could not wait. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to get some Monster Hunter gaming in. And so, Brian, I finally broke. I am now back on the Monster Hunter Now train.
Oh, you got
It is.
installed
I
on
am
a brand
back.
new phone.
I didn't touch it since Disneyland, our Disneyland trip last year, right?
Last
That was
year,
the last
yeah.
time we played it, right?
Mhm.
So it's been at least a good, I would say 8 or 9 months. And
I played
is it?
Pokemon Go, but never played that version of that game
oh
or
man,
that
it is.
style. Is it worth it?
It's honestly,
Yeah.
it really is, especially with some of the
Mm.
changes that they've made, that really kind of beef up the game. Whereas, I think Brian also quit around the same time, if not a little bit later than I did,
Mhm.
when we were playing it the first time. There were I guess one of the biggest issues was, running out of space for your item box and stuff like that. And they didn't really kind of, I guess, they didn't circumvent that, but they offered you free spaces and stuff like that. And I think
Mhm.
during their battle pass, they kind of up your space as well. So that was a nice
Mhm.
addition. I don't know when this was added, but they have these they're called dimensional links. Were you able to play that, Brian? Do you remember anything like that?
Not too much beyond just the story being rifts and
Yeah.
appearing and
So
monsters
yeah,
coming out.
the Monster Hunter Now app was basically a lot of story missions, and then just regular Monster Hunter stuff like grinding for gear and different drops and stuff like that. But they added a dimensional link system where now you can hunt with people across the internet. So they're basically Pokemon raids, but now
Gotcha.
you don't have to be in the same vicinity. So at any point, a dimensional link monster pops up, you can queue up, wait about 100 seconds for people to come through, and there's a lot of people still playing this thing because my queue fills up within 5 or 10 seconds. And you get to fight pretty beefy monsters and reap the rewards. I think they have a gold Rathian thing going on right now.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Is there a friend list option to join in that dimensional rift, or is it just match made online only?
I'm not sure. We would have to look into that together. I believe you
Cool.
could. but don't quote me on that.
That would be awesome. No more paintball. Gone are the days of me paintballing while you're back at one place, I'm at the other, bringing it back so we can do it together.
Right. Dude, you left my house to go. You're like, hey, there's a Rathian like across the street, and it's like a purple star. I will be right back.
I'll go get it. I'll go get it.
And Marisha is like, wait, where did Brian go? I was like, oh, we have to go get a monster. He's coming right back.
Yeah, it'll make
but
sense later.
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of changes that they made. Lots of quality of life stuff that have really brought me back in. And no joke, I have been playing since I had finished editing our first episode every single day. They added they added a cooking mini game to cook your meat. So every day in the original game, they would give you 5 first aid meds just for signing in. And then now on top of that, they add 2 uncooked steaks. So now there's like a mini game where you hold the button down and cook it for as long as you're supposed to cook it, and then the closer you get to like perfectly timing it, it gives you like a graded bronze, silver, or gold, based off of like your cooking performance before you like burn the steak. And I think veteran Monster Hunter players, going off of their ear of like petting Pooji or cooking well done steaks before, they know the timing. So I'm hitting like 98, 99%. And I'm like, this is so good. It's so nostalgic for a Monster Hunter player. I wouldn't even consider myself a veteran. But as someone who's played some of the older games, like it's such a nostalgia trip. And that's not the only thing. Oh, go ahead, Max.
I really thought you were gonna say it's so tasty there.
Ryan, where you at?
Bro,
you're one step closer to becoming fart bitch.
Me? I thought. Wait, you expected me to say that, Max? I don't even know what's going on. I've never played this.
I thought Pat was gonna say that because that's like the meat cooking. Then when you finish the
I don't think this is on me. I don't know anything about this game.
That was not directed at you, Ryan. I thought Pat was. That's where my mind jumped, and that was the next word that I was expecting to hear.
Yeah, but so I'm really enjoying Monster Hunter now. Again, it has definitely brought me back. There's a lot, of course, being away from the game for so long. There's a lot more weapons and armor sets to create, and there's like a new drift melding. It's called like drift melding section where you get like rocks for walking around, and it's basically the melding stuff to get different charms. So it is definitely a fuller game. Brian, I don't know how much this is selling it to you, but I would say like take a peek. You might be back on it
now.
This whole episode, Brian's just in the background, just like fighting something.
Yeah.
But so I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious, since as someone who's never played it, how much of it is accessible to a new player if I were to play it now? Because I know for a lot of mobile games, it's kind of an issue where all the new events come out and they're sort of tailored to the people that are at endgame and looking for new content. And so there's a lot of games where if you're sort of late to the bandwagon, if I downloaded it now, you know, a new event or whatever you said is like the Gold Rathian, like how long would I have to play before I could actually participate in that content?
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's worth it for a new player at this point?
I think personally for me, it doesn't feel like I am missing out on like later content, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't feel like the content that's going on right now is being like, hey, you need to hurry up and level up to get to this point. It just like, I just open it up and it feels like, oh, here's the normal stuff you have to do for today, and it just so happens that this event is going on while like if you want to participate in this as well. And it honestly doesn't feel like it's being shoehorned in, or it's like shoving it down your throat that you need to be as beefed up as you can be, you know.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, for new players, especially people new to the franchise, this is probably one of the easiest ways to get into the series and just understand what it's all about, because it's literally just tapping on your phone or swiping to dodge, but it has all the depth of trying to figure out like how to make your build the way you want it, and make your decorations and set all your gems to like really make the character that you want. So I think this is a perfect place for beginners of the franchise to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what would you think, Brian?
I would say that I would feel the same. I remember that the events did have some HR requirements, so that you couldn't just necessarily jump in right off the rip and do at the time I remember like Pink Rathian or Black Diablos.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be a certain amount of time that you'd have to invest just to get to those events. But, I know you know this, like you can still, of course, like it's just going to hide that event monster from you when you're in the overworld. It's just not going to show to you. So you're not going to be like locked into the only thing you can fight be this like really hard monster that you can't do anything about.
In the event reward, you're not going to be missing out on like some super crazy exclusive event reward where it's like...
You could, because you wouldn't be able to get the materials to make whatever is required of it.
Right.
So yeah, there is. That's how I remember it. But unless they made it easier or they opened it up so that even the events have low tier, kind of 1-star versions. But I don't remember it being that way. I thought there was a limit or a restriction, like you need to play a little bit first.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much up to the person to decide whether if missing out is like kind of the big thing, then yeah, it's always hard coming to a game that's already well established. But if that's not like, I never really go into a new game, even if it's an older game, being like, well, I want to be where they are at already, So I think it's still definitely worth a try. It's quick, it's easy, it's fun. Pick it up, play it on the train, or just have 5 minutes in between classes or stuff like that. It's definitely a lot of game for as little as as little as an app it is. That also that didn't pique or satiate my Monster Hunter fix.
Right.
So I ended up getting my 3DS out, and now I'm playing through Monster Hunter Generations. I started a completely new file. My first file on there only had about 10 hours in, which was nothing. I don't know what was going on at the time. I think I was in college, or I just had something else going on, but I bought Monster Hunter Generations and did not have the time. I don't even think we played it together at all, like the 3 or 4 of us.
I know we had it.
And so I am like, now I'm like 15, 16 hours in, still low rank, but I got all the nostalgia of like loadable areas, like unskippable animations, or like being like just being able to like drink a potion and like walk at the same time is such a like it's not here. Like you're stuck there for 10 seconds while like something is charging at you. So it's just I'm getting like all the nostalgia back from Monster Hunter Generations, but I'm super excited for this week to come because of course the beta is coming back, and then shortly after that we're going to be playing the full-fledged game
right
just at the end of this month. So
quick.
I got my little fix going in, but yeah, I think Ryan, you also had something pretty interesting that you wanted to talk to us about, right? Like some cool collaboration that we saw.
What are you talking about, the Lego thing? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I saw this a couple weeks ago, but there's a guy that's done these incredible mock-ups that I was just totally blown away by. They're unofficial, kind of specs, like they're not, branded as, Capcom official, whatever, but the guy has just like a great sense for like shape. I found my old Legos at my parents' house the other, couple months ago, and that like was a nostalgia trip on its own, but I didn't really get back into it. But I can appreciate other people who have a good sense for it. And so running across this randomly online was just mind-blowing, because the guy's just, his Mitsusune is like just incredible. Just the color blocking that he's doing and the shaping that he's doing. Got like a Baroth and there's a couple other ones. I can't remember. Maybe a Bell. What was the other one? Anyways, the dude is just an incredible builder, and you can like download.
Mizutsuno.
Yeah, well, he's got like 4 or 5 that he's done. He also did like a little Helldivers, like Walker. What the little mech suit. He did a couple other things.
Yeah, one of the ones that you
games
sent us was Monster Hunter X Zoids Legiacris, and it
that was
looks
cool.
absolutely
I like that.
sick, dude.
I don't think that's the same artist, but yeah, there's some pretty cool crossovers out there on the internet. That you can check out. The Lego one's particularly cool because you can pay him like $10 or whatever on this website to download the instructions from him, and then you can go to like Bricklink, which is like the big secondhand market for Legos, and buy all the parts. It's not cheap though. I think I looked just out of curiosity. I wasn't gonna buy it, but I think it was like like $400-$500 to buy the 3,000 pieces that you needed or something.
Wow.
So if you're out there and you have a big backlog of pieces and you pay $10 for the thing, like you might be able to get most of the way there and only have to spend $80 or something to get the last couple parts. But yeah, that's a pretty special project you'd have to take on. It looks great. I've seen some other people attempt Lego builds of Monster Hunter stuff, and they just don't do it quite as well as this guy. This guy's on another level. It's pretty incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks super sick, and I'm just gonna preface this now. There's gonna be an episode in the future where we talk about some Monster Hunter crossovers, and a Lego Monster Hunter game would be pretty sick.
Ooh, kind of like the Horizon crossover.
Yeah, or a Horizon crossover would be pretty sick as well. Who knows? You guys are gonna have to stay tuned to find out.
Okay.
But something else I think we all kind of noticed is that there's a new benchmark test for PC players for the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, or I guess technically the Monster Hunter Wilds game. But
yeah, I think it's for the full game.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it seems like that would be a benchmark. It's for the full game, but I haven't actually taken a look at it yet. I was actually checking the store yesterday to see if we could download the Wilds demo again. Or beta, and then I saw the benchmark test. Did you guys see that?
I see it now. I'm looking at it.
Yes.
Add it to my library.
Yeah, you're gonna do it tonight.
Curious, yeah. I must know how shitty it's gonna be.
What are you running right now, Brian?
For hardware specs?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm on a 7800 X3D AMD CPU and a NVIDIA RTX 4090. So I should be okay. Spec wise, have enough RAM, so I should be good to go, but didn't love the performance we saw in beta 1 public beta, so we'll see how it goes for full game.
Right. Max, I think you told us your specs in the last episode, but can you remind us what you had?
So I have an Intel 10850K is my processor,
right?
And I'm running an RTX 3080, which I think I lost the silicon lottery. I've had some serious issues with the card and thermal performance, so hopefully. I was lucky enough to be one of the ones to be blessed by the lottery to get the 5080. So
that's called a rare drop, I think.
Yeah, the 1%.
Yeah. Monster Hunter RNG is so meta that it's even taking the GPUs, the graphics cards away from Max.
I was gonna say
I carved the NVIDIA mantle essentially
from the shiny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we want to hunt with Max after this? I think he's used up all of his luck just getting that card. I feel like his drop rates are gonna be bad for the first couple of weeks.
Maybe you will absorb my negative luck. Well,
there we go.
Right.
I'll absorb it from the rest of you.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited because I work this weekend, but I think I might have some time to carve out, no pun intended, some time for the beta. Brian, can you remind me what's in my rig again? Of course, all my stuff is hand-me-downs from Brian now, because I was running a 1080 for since 2017.
Yeah. I saw one guy who did it was better than 1080, but it was basically a 1080 on the benchmark test for the game, and it was like 3 frames or something. I can't tell if he edited it. Yeah. I can't tell if he edited that potato part for the memes, but he did edit the assessment, because it'll say good performance or something, but the guy changed it to what the hell, and it was all red letters,
Yeah, I have a 3080, right?
Is all this fake or just the?
That's correct, 3080.
Okay, 3080 AMD Ryzen 5
5600X. Yeah, Ryzen 5 5600X.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's gonna be interesting to see what I'm pulling from this benchmark. Hopefully it'll be good, but we have yet to see what happens, but hopefully the full game, everything works pretty fine. I know I guess everyone's kind of been having issues with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC, me included. But they just dropped that the patch, and I also looked up videos for how to optimize for 3080, and I gotta say I'm keeping close to like 110, 120 FPS in the open area of the game. So yeah, hopefully whatever happens with come launch day, hopefully if it doesn't run silky smooth at the beginning, hopefully Capcom comes out with a patch pretty quickly, as fast as Square kind of has with their title.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Of course, let me remind you, fellow hunters, that this is the Palibros podcast, where each and every episode we try to keep you up to date on the latest Monster Hunter news, play Monster Hunter trivia, and in general talk about one of our favorite franchises. So don't forget, you can get each and every episode on youtube.com and Spotify, and if you like what we do, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing this video with friends, and hitting that bell icon to help support us and to know when each of the latest episodes are posted. I almost did that all in one breath. Are you guys impressed?
I was very impressed. I was like, when is he going to do it?
Oh, tasty.
That's all Ryan's responses for the rest of the show. Of course,
during the quiz, like what monster is so tasty?
no. Yeah, which
what about this one? So tasty.
And with all that out the way, you know what? Let's go ahead and begin the latest with the latest in Monster Hunter news. Today in Monster Hunter news, we have 3 stories. Our first story: weapon changes are coming in Monster Hunter Wilds. This article is written by Joe Craig over there at GameRant.com. The article reads, in an interview with IGN, Tokuda and Fujioka discussed the game's 14 weapon types, acknowledging the arsenal must advance with each game. Wilds will remove the need to replenish resources at the base after each quest, affecting weapons like the bowguns and bow, as Tokuda explained. Quote, we balanced it around the idea that things like normal, pierce, and spread ammo for bowguns and coatings for bows can fire unlimited times while managing your gauge. End quote. The director also explained that during the game's development, the greatsword was the first weapon the team focused on when creating animations. Quote, we began by developing the greatsword as a prototype, then verify weapons like the sword and shield and heavy bowgun, applying the knowledge we get from there. Monster Hunter Wilds is one of the most anticipated games to be released in 2025, and these changes to weaponry help to keep the IP fresh for long-term hunters and newcomers. Monster Hunter fans have already predicted the greatsword, longsword, and bow will be popular weapons in the upcoming installment, with dual blades remaining a classic go-to for veterans. Wilds will also feature the brand new focus strike mechanic, which will serve as a powerful attack specific to each weapon, alongside a wound system that deploys persistent damage on creatures. So, what are our guys' thoughts?
I would say, go ahead, Max.
I was going to say, I wonder why they started with greatsword.
It's like, kind of my idea.
Because it's the best.
Our resident greatsword hunter, Ryan, of course, rallying his freak flag for his greatsword. I would guess like it's kind of like how they develop like fighting game variants, or I guess archetypes, right? So they usually start off with like their Shotos, so like a Ryu and Ken style, just kind of get like their bearings around how the game kind of works, and then you could divulge into something of like a grappler, so like Zangief, or something that's more zoner heavy, like what was his name, JP. So I'm guessing, like, you know what, I think to me it seemed like, okay, let's go ahead and start with the greatsword, because it's the most iconic weapon that you would think of when you think Monster Hunter. At least I think for the general population, like you see a giant monster, you're gonna think giant sword. That shit's cool. That sells money. Let's go ahead and start there, and then work our way towards other melee weapons, or heavy bowgun and stuff like that.
So obviously this is all speculation on my part, but I'm curious on what the development timeline looks like, whether the weapons are sort of developed in tandem with sort of the monster designs. Because in my mind, the greatsword is kind of like the litmus test for a lot of different like fights with monsters, because greatsword is like the slowest weapon. And so like everything has to be doable with a greatsword. Like, so if something, nothing can be too fast that like you just legitimately can't fight it with a greatsword. Because like if you're balancing monsters around the dual blades, you know, if that's the level of quickness or speed that you're expected to have, then it just would be impossible with greatsword, basically, unless you have like a giga brain, you know, seeing 6 seconds into the future. And some greatsword users are like that already.
Ryan,
I mean,
why are you smiling so hard?
Say that.
But something like that would require that they were sort of designing the weapons and sort of around the monsters, or like that was be a consideration. And you know, with a large company and team working on like this at Capcom, I doubt that maybe the teams aren't interacting with each other to that degree. But it's just an interesting thought that I had. Like, why greatsword?
I mean,
other than that, it's iconic.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it to a litmus test. You know, we were talking last episode about how Nagakuga is like such a fun monster to fight. You know, because if you can get his timing down just right as a greatsword user, it's like really rewarding. But you know, he's one of the faster, more agile monsters in the series. So, you know, I think up until this point they've done a great job of, you know, balancing everything. And obviously they've, you know, a couple games back they added a lot more movement possibilities. You know, with the great sword allowing you to chain different attacks. It's not just, you know, charge up big overhead swing and then side slash. It's now you get the shoulder charge and you get like the back slash, and you know, you have all these different things. And you know, had the wire bug previously, and now the secret is like, you know, gives you a lot of mobility that you can kind of hightail out of there at the last second if you need to. So, you know, I think the game is definitely trying to move in a faster direction. This greatsword's definitely a lot less clunky than it used to be, but you know, that I agree with Max. It's definitely got to be the baseline. Is this fun to fight with this weapon?
Yeah. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's just we're rehashing what was already been said, but effectively you balance for what the slowest thing is, and then everything else can be kind of adjusted damage wise for it with speed. And I mean, they've given greatsword a ton of really, really powerful skill sets in the last few generations. I mean, the ability of tackling, the ability to kind of reposition and allow yourself to not be like punished so severely. If your timing is off by like just a few moments, you can kind of correct it with some things and really stand your ground. So it's just a great weapon to start with and kind of work from there with some of the other classics, you know, heavy bowgun, sword and shield. It's a very interesting development style.
Great. Are we safe to talk about some of the other changes, or is that
go for
coming up in the next segment? Because I know I'm very interested in some of the changes to heavy bowgun in particular. Because I mean, they talked about how they're sort of giving all the normal spread and pierce shots are going to have infinite ammo.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting change. Can one of you confirm that it's like Pierce 1, 2, and 3 are all infinite, or is it just the lower levels are infinite?
I can't confirm that. I'm not sure. Just pulling it from this article, that's all it gives us. It would be crazy if all levels of it were unlimited. But
I'm trying to remember when I was using heavy bowgun. I don't recall having access to too many multiple levels of the same shot. I know for certain that some of the more heavier shots, like the crag shots, wyvern shots, cluster, any kind of those bigger poison, paralysis, the special shots did have a finite amount that you had to restock on. But I honestly don't remember getting access to like Pierce 2 and 3 or, you know, I remember there being a normal 2. So we'll have to confirm, but I could totally see it being the heavier level shots, even for those, you know, Pierce 3, normal 3, spread 3, those could be in the same category as needing to be crafted.
Because otherwise, like, I mean, this is kind of getting into the technicalities of how bowguns worked in previous games, but it doesn't really make sense to me to have like normal 1, 2, and 3 all be infinite, because as the shots function now, normal 3 is essentially just a straight damage upgrade over normal 2. Whereas in previous games, normal 3 functioned differently because there would be like splinter ricocheting shots would come out in normal 3. And so the way that you used the shot was fundamentally different than normal 2.
Wow.
Right.
Because the damage from normal 3 was only higher if the little ricochet shot also hit the monster. So you would aim.
So you want like a big body.
You would aim for places where it would ricochet off and hit the monster. And in most cases, normal 2 would actually be better. And the same thing, like with Pierce 3, would allow it to pierce more segments of the monster's body. But the trade-off was that it had to be a larger monster for it to be able to hit enough segments to do more damage. And so there was a place for at least Pierce 1, maybe not so much, but there's always sort of like calculations to be done around some of these shot types. And so, I mean, some of these, like for bow, I don't really see any problem with having infinite power coatings, because that's essentially like, there's not really a decision to be made there around like gameplay style. Like if your bow can use power coatings, you should always be using power coatings. That's just like, that's it. Which I don't think is necessarily as interesting of game design as some of the bowgun shot types. But I'm curious to see how it functions in game. I know I dabble in the bowguns, so I'm always.
He does a lot more than just blow his hunting horn over there, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I understand that they're trying to go for this seamless open world and being able to just initiate hunts right off the back, not having to load back into a hub world right away, getting the chance to restock. It would be very frustrating to have to constantly pull up your, temporary tent, or to leave what you're doing just to get more of those normal shots. Or in this case, to kind of relieve some of the burden of our friend Patrick here, who used to carry all of our spare shots.
The pack. My first nickname was the Pack Mule.
He was the Pack Mule. He carried all the elemental shots from Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. So
hey, if I wasn't busy dying, I was helping reload.
Hey man, you would literally sacrifice yourself for the shots. You're like, I'm gonna take this hit, but gosh darn it, I'm holding out that shiny item, and you better hit it before I get it before I die.
I should have played more Helldivers. I would have been the backpack guy.
You can, and now there's a Hellbomb backpack. So yeah, it's cool.
All right, moving on to our second story. Monster Hunter Wilds lead was also crushed by Monster Hunter World's brutal decoration RNG. Quote, I ended up finishing the game without having completed my build, end quote. Of course, this article comes from GamesRadar.com and is written by Austin Wood. The article reads, Monster Hunter World was notoriously stingy with its gem-like socketed decorations, especially with rarer ones that could easily unlock essential skills that otherwise required specific armor pieces. Bad luck could make your dream build much harder to craft. Thankfully, Monster Hunter Wilds uses a similar gearing system but ensures decorations can be crafted to guarantee key skills, which is good news for the countless folks who got burned in World, including Monster Hunter Wilds art and executive director Kaname Fujioka, who directed the original Monster Hunter and has been with the series ever since. Fujioka, with Wilds director Yuya Tokuda, spoke to IGN about the decoration system in Wilds. As we previously saw firsthand, Wilds largely splits offensive and defensive skills between weapons and armor respectively, so slotting in the right decorations to round out your setup will be even more important than in previous games. Quote, decorations are currently similar to the systems in World, with decorations having specific abilities. These skills are still activated by placing them into the weapon or armor slots, parentheses, in Wilds. Weapon and armor skills can each be activated separately, end parentheses. However, you can make single skill decorations through something like alchemy. So in Wilds, players won't have the issue of never being able to get a specific skill, end quote. This will prevent a repeat of the relatable nightmare that Fujioka, a devout lance main who, like me, struggled to get a guard up decoration to drop in World. Quote, I never ended up getting it once, Fujioka said. My shield jewel too. I ended up finishing the game without having completed my build. I see Brian nodding his head in unison. The decoration grind in World was so painful that once the game came to PC, a sizable group of players quickly turned to mods to cheat in the ones they wanted. either to match the collection they had on console or to save time and headache of RNG. with the issue resolved for Wilds, the next question is how we'll get the talismans or charms, which will have historically bundled multiple skills and decoration slots into one special equipment slot. World had random decorations but craftable charms, while Monster Hunter Rise used the opposite setup, just as games like Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate did previously. Wilds may do the same, but charm power and acquisition is still unclear. However it shakes out, Wilds is already a step up from World's itemization. I know there was a lot to read there, but what do you guys think? I see lots of laughter, I see lots of head nods and movement over on Max and Brian's side. Of course, I think at one point Brian asked me what the what is it? It's like another word for, I guess it was like, what's the protocol on, like, are we cool with putting in cheats to make our builds that we've already done on the console version, right? Or like there are things that have like, I mean, you've seen the spreadsheets numbers, right? You've seen that like it's near to impossible to get some of these decorations, and you're like, hey, we are probably never going to experience this in our lifetime. Can we just try it so we can get our build? And like, is that wrong? Or you know, so yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, and I'd be curious to hear Ryan's thoughts on this too, because I think Ryan, you and I went back and forth on whether or not it's considered cheating with Monster Hunter World. But yeah, there was elements to, you know, charm snipe or decoration sniping. I think people came up with strategies even on the PlayStation where you could, and Xbox, where you could effectively see what your charms were, or your decorations, I gotta say that right, your decorations were going to be, and then if you saw something that you wanted further down a chain, you could effectively redo your save and do some save scumming to effectively get it. So it's more of an exploit at that point. But yeah, I think you nailed it. We played so much Monster Hunter on console that we got a lot of the decorations, we got a lot of the RNG that we needed. We wanted to play on PC, and it was like, you know what, I don't want to do that grind again. So it was hard for me not to see it as just another way to make our lives a little easier. So I'll call myself a cheater in that way. What do you think?
I mean, look, I think that I save scum on single player games all the time. Like Baldur's Gate, I knew I wasn't going to play that game. I knew I wasn't going to play that game 6 times to get all 6 endings. So I would just, you know, play out a scenario that I was least likely to do first, and then I would just like reload the save and then actually play it how I wanted to play it. So, you know, conceptually, I'm not opposed to it, especially because you were talking to Brian about how, like, you know, once the PC version of Worlds came out and for Rise, a lot of people were just using it to get their inventories back so they didn't have to dump another 100 hours into the game to get back to where they were. So, you know, in that sense, I don't really think it's a problem. It was definitely interesting to know, you know, early on if you were screwed. I didn't save scum my profile on Rise, but yeah, I remember looking up some of these tables and then like trying to like re-roll for some of the talismans and just hoping that I'd get something good. You know, I had decent enough stuff, you know, but it never got to the point where I was like really hard locked out of a thing because I was missing one point. So I think one of the most interesting keywords from the article is like, oh, like I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was basically like, yeah, like the important stuff will be covered. Like you can craft it. So it makes me kind of think, what is excluded? Is there going to be some like new skills that are like non-craftable that are like really rare and can like totally change the way the game plays? That's kind of my thought. Like, or is it truly everything can be crafted and all's kind of on the table? The way they worded it is curious, and I'm like kind of waiting to see what that might mean.
So one thing that jumped out to me listening to this is they said decorations can be crafted to guarantee key skills. And that makes me think, what are key skills? Are there non-key skills? So that's the kind of question, like, so that seems kind of vague to me in my mind. Like, are they all going to be craftable? Because like in Monster Hunter World, I think you could still craft some, but it was like the garbage ones. You couldn't craft anything that was like useful.
You don't like gathering.
Are they going to identify potentially like the guard up or something that's like actually critical to the functioning of a weapon, and then maybe not have like critical eye and attack up or something, or like the more they might have some of the comfort skills, but not like any of the meta damage stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the position where I played a ton of Monster Hunter World on PlayStation, the console when it was out, and I did not have any interest in doing that grind again. And I think that was exacerbated by the fact that the grind was not very fun. In order to get like the good talismans, you basically just had to fight the same Elder Dragons over and over and over, because those were the only monsters in the pool that could drop the best things. And so like that system just screams tedium. And so in a certain sense, like, I'm going to make a D&D comparison. There's like a term in D&D where you can say you can take 20, which is not really like an official term, but a lot of house rules have it, where you basically, if there's like an exploit that exists, or if it's something like you're trying to open a chest and there's no time limit, and like you have sufficient skill where you're gonna do it, you're gonna get it eventually, if you just keep save scumming or you keep trying it over and over, then you can just take 20 and just get it. And so if it's a system where, there's all these exploits where you can go see what your decoration table is and spend hours and hours just sort of cycling through to guarantee getting it, like, is that worth it? Like, what does that add to the game? Or is it better to just give it to somebody?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's not like this is a competitive shooter or some sort of like PvP game. So honestly, I think being able to do that, especially if you get through the end of the game, and having older games where it wasn't day and date release with PC. So I think being able to like save time and being able to get exactly what you want, it isn't a bad thing, because one, it's not like it's like pay to win or something something that is definitely more controversial in other circles because they are a PvP type game. I think being able to get the exact build that you want in Monster Hunter is totally acceptable. It doesn't change anything for the other people that play around you or play with you, and it doesn't seem as harmful as basically like a PvP type cheat. So I think it's totally fine that people are able to do that.
A lot of this game is scraping and clawing your way to victory too. You're beating these things over the head for 40 minutes and they can one-shot you like the whole time. So sometimes you really do need that extra little advantage too.
Yeah.
It seems to me that like the way that the language is, that core skills, like sharpen and guard and earplugs and are all going to probably be available to craft, but I'd imagine some more niche stuff might not be available, and that's fine. I think that's like it might be a little bit much to like let you craft everything. I kind of like that there's still some of that, because we kind of touched on it earlier, but Monster Hunter has streamlined a lot of the tedium. Like early Monster Hunter games, you had to maintain a farm, you had to go back every time. I mean, there was so much stuff that was just like really added to the grindy RPG nature of it, and they've done away with a lot of it. And so now that you don't even have to go back to base camp, and now you can craft most of the tools, like these are probably good changes. But old heads like us might, miss
Scoff
it a little bit.
I mean, yeah, like definitely going back into Monster Hunter Generations, which isn't even that old of a game, I guess, and just like seeing some of the like quality of life changes, and feeling like, oh man, I actually kind of miss being able to do some of these things. Like I like
back in my day, you had to stand in one place when you were sharpening your weapon. You couldn't ride around on a dinosaur.
You have to actually bring whetstones. Like they don't just hand them out.
Consumable.
And what's funny is like it's a play on the beginning of our show. It's like, oh, don't forget your hot drinks. Like new Monster Hunter people, new Monster Hunter players from Monster Hunter World and up don't have that issue because they're probably shaking their head like, what the hell do you mean hot drinks? What are hot drinks or cold drinks? Or that shit would happen all the time. I'm like, okay, we're going to the tundra. Oh fuck, we loaded everything. I even got your extra elemental shots, but I forgot fucking hot drinks, and there's only like 2 in the fucking item box.
I just watched a video essay, and it brought up a good point that like it's kind of not unique to Monster Hunter, but it's like a big pillar of it that I hadn't really thought about explicitly. The game rewards you so much for preparation. Like,
wow.
not only just your build and your sword or whatever, but there's very few games that are like that highlight that part of the game as much as Monster Hunter, where it's like you only have so much space. Like, you got to bring all of these stuff, and again, older games, like you had to bring the crafting books. Like, you couldn't even like craft stuff unless you brought a book with you, and that took up
well, you
1 to
could,
3
but then your
chances
are lowered. Yeah, it was like an 80% chance instead of like, oh, if you have book 1 and 2, now it's a 90% chance. So
I mean, the feeling that you're watching your inventory like get eaten away, and you're like, oh crap, I got 1 herb and 1 honey left. Like, holy shit, like am I gonna make it? There's definitely a lot of the game basically forced you to have a certain inventory at the beginning, but there was a sense of accomplishment. You're like, I did everything I could. I brought every piece of gear that was necessary, and then some, and then that's how you ended up carrying all that bowgun ammo, is because you can only carry so much, but you could cheese it a little bit if you were prepared.
Dude, I always carried hell extra shit. Go ahead, Max.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate, and I think I'm going to say that I think a lot of that has been stripped away. A lot of the preparation requirements, because you don't have to bring cold drinks, you don't have to bring hot drinks. Like, everybody now has like their one button loadout to load up all their equipment at base. And I mean, even with like gear wise and armor sets, like that's why there's such like an outcry, when thinking about Monster Hunter World, like the Valhazak. There's the armor skill that basically trivializes Valhazak. But it's like there's very few monsters that like force you to build a certain way, or like in preparation. And that's kind of like, the people that don't have the effluvium resistance.
I remember
they have like half health the whole time, and they're like banging their head against a wall when it's easily avoidable.
That was me.
or same thing to a certain extent, whether you like the Eschaton Judgment for Eletreon, whether you sort of like that sort of DPS check or not, that's a fight that absolutely required you to build a certain way. And that is incredibly controversial. The fact that they added it in at this point, it's like people are not used to having to prepare to that extent anymore.
I think it has made the game more accessible, though. Like, the game is more popular now than it ever was. So some of these like hurdles are a little bit fabricated, although I do enjoy that part of the game. So I will say that the game has kind of propped it up in new ways, like some of these weather events and some other like parts of the ecology kind of checking you in small ways still makes it, you're not losing stamina from not having a hot drink or something necessarily, but like the obfuscation of like the map, and like being slowed down through like some of the sandstorms in the beta and stuff. So like there's still like an interaction with like the character and the world, but it's not as tied to your inventory as it used to be, for sure.
I mean, I will say that McDonald's is like the most popular and accessible restaurant on earth, but popularity isn't necessarily always good, but it certainly has become more accessible to a lot of people, for better or for worse, depending on which.
They have to now consider both fan bases, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the topic of Monster Hunter Generations, I just want to add, I would really love if Capcom brought it to PC. I know that it probably would not make financial sense to do that because it's on an old system. It's probably a lot easier because of the RE engine to port Monster Hunter Rise to PC. But I think for people that have a Switch, I would really recommend Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate if you're looking at getting back into older games, because it's like sort of the perfect blending of it still has a lot of the old school jank and charm, but it also has adept style and striker style and all more action and some of the more interesting sort of combat that they've added in the more recent games like World and Rise. So I think it's a good starting point for somebody who's interested in going back to sort of experience what old school Monster Hunter is like.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say, and just to circle back to the article, the reason I was reacting so viscerally is just to hearing you read it was just as a fellow Landsman, and I know we will talk about weapons in a little bit. I was in that exact same situation. That damn Shield Jewel 2, the crucial requirement for the build so that you could block unblockable attacks. It eluded me for so many hours. And
did you ever get it on console?
I did get it. And I did it through what people recommended. There was a tempered Lavasioth mission that was like, I don't know, it was an event quest or something where you would just drop shinies that happened to be like the face stones or whatever you needed, and I got really lucky and on that table and I was able to finally get it. But damn, when I didn't have it, I thought I had no hope. So it sucks to hear that even the executive director never got it. I'm glad that I wasn't in the same situation. I know. How could I not have you?
Well, moving on to our last story. Almost 10 years later, Monster Hunter Wilds finally expand on one of the coolest and rarest monster types in the entire series. Of course, this article is also by Austin Wood by way of Games Radar. The Monster Hunter Wilds lineup now includes the oily brute wyvern Rompopalo, the ape-like fanged beast Ajarakan, you have fun with that. And most interestingly, a fiery octopus, New Udra, known to the locals as the Black Flame. While technically unclassified, the Black Flame is clearly a fire-spewing, oil-coated cephalopod. This automatically puts it in one of the smallest groups of monsters in the entire series, and it's most octopus-like one of the bunch by some distance. We've seen plenty of tendrils and tentacles in Monster Hunter, but true cephalopods are in short supply. The standouts are Yamasukami, an octopus-ish elder dragon from Monster Hunter 2, and Nakarkos, an armored squid, which was introduced in 2015's Monster Hunter Generations, and which is also somehow an elder dragon. As a reminder, one of the elder dragons is a horse. So look, Capcom's been playing fast and loose with the label for years. If it's weird and powerful, it's probably an elder dragon. The point is, we finally have a new cephalopod after nearly 10 years, and this new Udra looks mighty cool. It's currently positioned as the alpha monster of the Oil Well Basin, which suggests it's not an elder dragon since those are typically defined by their status outside normal ecosystems. In other words, this could be an all-new classification of monster, assuming Capcom finally codifies cephalopods. That, or it could get lumped into the Leviathans. Either way, the fact that Monster Hunter Wilds can support monsters that are built and animated like this is encouraging, as it opens the door for yet more imaginative designs to come. I want to start with Ryan with this one. Ryan, last episode, kind of brought up the point that the new animations sometimes are a little bit jarring and kind of could, like, I guess, clash against the more Western dragon style, like Rathalos or like a Fatalis or something like that. I finally got to see this in action. I've been very kind of, as the showrunner, I've been kind of late with kind of catching up with things, but seeing this live, or seeing like my first glimpse of this monster looks insane. Like, I haven't seen anything like it. It has like some weird anime crazy like blue eye thing going on. It's all black and tar-like, and then they just said, fuck it, let's set it on fire. And I kind of agree with Ryan, where it's like, that is traditionally not what the monsters kind of look like. So it is going to be interesting, like, if they do cross paths and have like turf wars or something like that. It's going to be kind of interesting. But I'm not mad that they can kind of come up with this new kind of imaginative style of monster.
I mean, look, we're on like, what, 20 years of Monster Hunter, right? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
So, as cool as it is to see them, come up with another cool dragon, 10-year-old Ryan is stoked on cool looking dragons. That was a big part of my childhood, was just being real into that. I think it's amazing that they've kind of kept it fresh, but I do think at a certain point you can only dip into the well so many times. So as much as my initial reaction was very kind of uncertain, I completely agree with you that like new form factors really open up the door for new monster types. I mean, think about how like iconic the Hermitaur is. Like literally this giant crab with like a skull on its back. That's just so iconic and cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this like 20-foot tall homie that, to us is dinner, normally. So it's cool to see them kind of break convention whenever they have in the past. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of see how some of these newer form factors will kind of blossom from this. Because I imagine, obviously, I mean, Trailer 6 dropped recently, and we're already starting to see some of the older stuff being brought back, and we already know that, like, yeah, some iconic stuff is going to coexist with this like squid monster. So I think it's a good thing. I've embraced the new kind of art style and just excited to see what they do with it.
I'm excited to see the carves that we get from it.
Yeah, definitely.
It has to have some sort of like fire attack, right?
Sure, has to be.
What about you guys, Max?
So I'm first of all, I'm gonna ask that you put some respect on my boy Kieran's name. Kieran is technically not a horse, since it's based on like the mythical creature from Chinese mythology. It's like a qilin or something, I think it's pronounced, which is like usually depicted as more draconic. So that's technically what it's based on. It's not technically a horse, but
the fishnet chess piece works pretty well too.
I think that's Nargacuga, isn't it? But the Kieran is also pretty
oh wait, that's
revealing.
The one is the crop top, right? The Kieran is like the crop top. See, that one works just as well.
Mm.
So I'm pretty excited for some of the new designs. It's Akarkos is a really cool fight. So I'm always interested to see more cool monsters. I know one of these days I'm gonna get you guys to play Monster Hunter Frontier with me.
Yeah,
because there's like 70 plus crazy. The monster designs in that are crazy.
That's the MMORPG one, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It is now unofficially playable. If you have, I've played it a little bit, but
allegedly.
Unfortunately, yes, allegedly. But Hunting Horn is not in its best state in the game, so it's not the greatest to solo or do stuff with.
Yeah. What do you think about the new monster designs, Brian?
Yeah, I'm excited. I know we usually see it with every new generation of game. Just sometimes or generally a new monster frame, a new monster skeleton, I think is what they call it. So, you have your, what is it, like Zinogre is basically the same as Magnamalo from Rise. Like there's just generally like a set frame that you'll see incorporated in certain games and kind of either adapted into different monster types throughout the series. So a cephalopod would be a very unique kind of monster skeleton to bring in. And if that's the case, are we going to see more cephalopods of some form?
Yeah.
Throughout the game. So I'm excited. The new monster, the Black Flame, new Udra looks really, really cool. It seems like it's going to be probably one of this game's maybe skill check. You'll get to that and we might be able to breeze through a lot of the fights. But once we hit that alpha and that oil basin, I think we're going to start to have maybe some trouble there. But I can't say I'm ever going to get used to seeing that monster mimic a octopus and squeeze its entire body through the smallest of cracks in the wall. I don't know if you all see the trailer for that, the gameplay. It's weird to look at. I don't think we're ever going to get used to it. It's pretty wild.
That's pretty cool.
So,
it's pretty wild, is it?
Unintended.
Monster Hunter Wild.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited
Monster
to
Hunter
see.
Wild, right?
Is this thing on? Anybody? I'm excited to see what some of the mods will be like for this monster. I could already kind of imagine just like a blooper from the Super Mario series as like just a giant version of this, or it's just to see how far imagination can come, especially when you throw randomness of a PC mod come into it.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious.
It's the tank engine on fire slipping through the wall, beating you up.
Oh god.
Hey, if he could be Mr. X.
There you go.
I know Capcom was pretty hands off about mods for quite a while, but I remember them not being too happy with the state of mods at Resident Evil 2 Remake, I think it was. I don't know if they're souring on the whole modding scene and sort of like what it could potentially bring in terms of like they want their games to be sort of experienced as is. And they don't like all of the nude mods and mature mods that are all over the internet.
Yeah. That's understandable though. I mean that kind of for sure departs from what their visual and gameplay designs would be, but
I mean there's only so many times you can see Jill in a cow anime suit with just gigantic knockers.
Right.
I mean, aside from that, there also are a lot of useful mods in previous. I know Monster Hunter Rise, for example, there was a mod that made like a little beam of light come up from the little shiny droppable items. So it was much either improved visibility. You know, people feel differently about this, but there's DPS charts and there's all sorts of interesting mods. I'd be curious to see what comes to Wilds as well.
I do draw the line at health bars. I feel like that's a pretty integral part of Monster Hunter, but I know that's like a popularly requested thing because it's pretty traditional in other games. But I love the visual storytelling of watching it evolve through the fight and them limping away and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, I remember when Worlds came out and the first trailer, I believe they were showing damage numbers already. And I was like,
I'm like, what?
I don't know how I feel about this. And now it's definitely like, I think I don't even notice it anymore. I don't even think
it does. It depends on what weapon you're using, I think.
Yeah.
If you're using like dual blades, it's just like a giant blob of small numbers.
Right, yeah.
But like the adrenaline junkie is using greatsword, and I've dabbled in greatsword. It's kind of like you live for the true charge slash that does thousands of damage. Because it's like that's like
can confirm
when you cream your pants.
Well, it sounds like Ryan's gonna be doing a lot of laundry.
Can confirm.
Yep, the laundry part too.
Well, that brings us to the end of Monster Hunter news, and now, fellow hunters, hentai.
Hunters got mods on the mind.
Oh my god, that one's going in the book. And now, fellow hunters, the time has come, and so have I, and so has Ryan. That's right, it's time for some Monster Hunter trivia. On this episode of the Palibros, we're going to be playing Let's Get Physical. In this game, each of our contestants will try to guess the monster based on the monster's physiological description as it is written in the Monster Hunter Wiki. They will all be given 10 seconds to write down what they think the monster is, and then we'll go over each of their answers and assign points accordingly. But before we start, we're going to make a change to the point system. Moving forward, each question based on difficulty will have its own point value ranging from 10 to 50 points. So now, with the power of my mind alone, I will now be converting each of your points from the previous show. So put your controller on the floor. I see you like to play Monster Hunter. Max and Brian are now both at 30 points each, and Ryguy is still at 0 points, but he still has the tip of the hat that carries over
Crunch
from
the
the
numbers
last
again.
episode.
Crunch the numbers again.
Nope. Did it about 4 times just now. It's still 0. And your hat is getting smaller.
Oh, no.
With that done, let's begin round 1 of Let's Get Physical. Round 1 for 30 points. All of these monsters are male, as the females are not seen. Like most other leviathans, this monster has a long, slender body. However, he is one of the few leviathans to actually have fur on his body. This dark purple fur covers his chest, underbelly, legs, and tail. His scales are light-colored and resemble those of a fish. His head has a long snout and is beautifully adorned by many fin-like appendages. These fins are pink with yellow markings, and they can also be seen on his back and tail. His feet are said to be quite different from other leviathans and allow this monster to move swiftly on land. The females are said to be dull in color, with shorter fins and dark black fur. Contestants, you now have 10 seconds to write your answers.
Okay, hopefully you won't destroy us on spelling here.
No. But I will mark you guys on penmanship.
Bonus points for me, who is texting the answer in.
Definitely.
Wow, this looks so good. Yeah, I typed it myself.
Okay, pencils down. And 3, 2, 1, Brian and Max, let's go ahead and reveal your answers.
Flip them and read.
So looks like we both have Mizutsune, and Ryan texted in. It is also Mizutsune.
Yeah.
I did it.
That is correct.
I did it.
Not too many Leviathans to pull from that pool, so that one wasn't too bad.
There you go. That was a clean sweep.
What threw me for a loop though was you mentioned the females of I'm like, I don't remember a black kind of furred version of the Mizutsune or of a monster. I'm like, but because we never saw it, and I guess that's part of the hint was that you never technically see it, only males.
Was there to throw us off?
Yeah.
My initial thought was what's the whisker mud boy from World? Is it World?
Whisker Mud Boy.
Gyrototus?
Yes.
Does it have whiskers? That's the fish one,
whiskers.
right?
It's just like a fish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a plesioth.
There's a Leviathan that's got kind of a draconic face and like big whiskers. When you started talking about hair, I was like,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh shit.
He literally like dives in and out of just, like mud.
Oh,
yeah.
From Rise, it was an Almudron.
Almudron. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh wow. That
was my first thought.
All right, so we got a clean
sweep. Does Almudron have fur?
From does it? It was.
Let me.
Well, I don't know. I just remember the whiskers. I just remember his little fucking. So I just assumed that he had more fur somewhere.
The whiskers are kind of like a celestial,
really.
like.
It does kind of have. It doesn't really have fur, and it's definitely not pinkish.
Well, yeah.
Although
halfway through,
front claws are somewhat similar to a Mizutsune's.
Halfway through, I was like, yeah, probably not that one.
Your intuition led you to the right answer.
Correct.
Moving on to round 2 for 20 points. This monster is quadrupedal, capable of moving at fast speeds. It is Is that what quadrupedal means?
No, quadrupedal means on
it just means on all fours, right? Okay. When I was taking this from the Monster Hunter Wiki, I was like, that's weird that they don't delineate the difference between. Anyways, monster is quadrupedal and capable of moving at fast speeds. It is covered in red scales and bony protrusions that resemble muscle tissue and bone. The tail is particularly bony and can be used as a club. This monster's most distinctive feature is its double row of claws, which it uses to inflict deep wounds in its prey. After eating, red veins will glow on its back. Contestants, you now have 10 seconds to write down your answers.
Took me to the end to get that one. That was very descriptive.
And pencils down. Oh my god, Ryan
threw that down.
Okay. And let's go ahead and reveal the answer. Max, what did you come up with?
Odogaron.
And Brian?
Same, Odogaron.
And Ryan texted in Ogodoron?
Question mark?
Yeah, there's question. It's Ogodoron, parentheses, Ogodogo, question guy, Odogo, baby, go. How close was that?
I think that's
that was pretty good.
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and say that it is, in fact, the Odogaron.
Yeah.
You guys got another clean sweep. Did I mess up in making this way too easy?
Some of the stuff in there I didn't remember very clearly. Like, I didn't really remember the tail as much, being like a club.
Yeah. I only remember.
Yeah, I actually don't remember
it's
that
just
either.
the fact that it said it's red and quadrupedal, which is basically only.
That's the only one, right?
That's like pretty much the only thing
I
I
kept
can think
mentioning
of.
bones. It's like literally in a den of bones. Well, it's definitely it's actually one of my favorite of the newer monsters.
For sure.
It's fun, it's quick, and and it gives you I believe it gives you like evasion for that set.
That was my main set in World.
Yeah. Oh man. Going back to like cool crossovers. It was like a long time ago, maybe like No, it was closer to when World came out on the PC. I was starting to see like just like random ads for like Monster Hunter stuff again, and it was like Monster Hunter shirts where it was like the profile picture of like really cool art style of like the profiles of like certain monsters, and there was an Odogaron shirt. It was all black and then just the red just profile, and it was so cool. I almost bought a couple of them. Now I wonder if I could kind of find them again. All right, let's move on to our third and final round for a whopping 50 points.
Ooh.
This monster heavily resembles the Pachycephalosaurus, a dinosaur famous for its unique looking skull. Male versions of this monster are bright orange in color and have a large head crest for headbutting rivals, whereas females are bronze in color and lack the head crest found in males. Would you like me to repeat that? It seems like we got a little bit lost. Okay.
What?
For 50 points, this monster heavily resembles the Pachycephalosaurus, a dinosaur famous for its unique-looking skull. Male versions of this monster are bright orange in color and have a large head crest for headbutting rivals, whereas females are bronze in color and lack the head crest found in males. I'm cracking up because I see Max smiling. Contestants, you guys now have 10 seconds to write down your answers.
God, I forget what it's called.
I feel like Max is pretty set on this one. Hence,
Don't remember how to full name. God damn it! Don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I can see it in my mind's eye, but I can't name it.
I got like half of it.
Okay.
I don't remember the full name, I think.
All right, let's go ahead and reveal our answers.
Shot in the dark. God damn it! I forgot how to spell it. I didn't know the full name.
Oh my god. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with Max. What did you come up with?
I got Kestodon because I specifically remember that
Son of a bitch.
You need Kestodon.
Son of a bitch.
Like, you need to get like the scalp or like the carapace from those to make all the Bareth weapons. And since I'm a collector who I like to make everything, I had to, every time I wanted to make another Bareth weapon, I had to specifically go out and kill those. So it was like every single time I was like, oh, I have all the parts. No, I know I need to go specifically kill Kestodons. It sticks out because I had to go out of my way to get them because I never kill.
Yeah.
Brian, you look like you had some trouble.
I did. I thought I couldn't remember the full name. I was like Kesteron. We were talking about Dogaron. Like it was already tricky because that's not a large monster.
Yeah, that one is.
But I got
that one.
I got halfway. I don't know if that means I get, maybe like consolation prize. No, I don't think it works that way.
I don't think it works that way.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Damn.
And
that was a good one.
Ryan wrote in with fuck. Parentheses. Headbutt dude missionary haircut. Something Dawn.
That's the best I could come up with on the spot.
That is.
I could see it.
That is fucking amazing. Right? Oh my god. Yeah, that. Yeah, that is.
Should get something
so
for
good.
that. That's great.
Okay, so let's see here.
Maybe negative points for saying fuck is my answer. I don't know.
No, it's fine.
That's okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead and tally up the points. Max, sorry, I'm still laughing at the fuck, and then I start choking on air. Give me 1 second.
Not enough time. I just wrote what came to my heart.
Oh man, so good.
Maybe my answer shouldn't be so word vomity. It's easier to type stuff than it is to write something. So.
All right, that is the conclusion of Monster Hunter trivia. So let's go ahead and tally up the scores. In last place with a total of 50 points and a tip of the hat, Ryan. In second place.
Yay.
In second place with a total of 100 points, we have Brian. And in first place with a total of 150 points, getting a clean sweep for today's Monster Hunter trivia. Just flexing on him. We have the Hunting Horn elitist Max. Of course, congratulations to our winner Max today for Monster Hunter trivia. I think this is honestly my favorite part of coming up with the shows. Like, I have so much fun trying to figure out new ways to kind of just like make you guys kind of just get pissed off a little bit, but give you a little something to get you going.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
He's okay.
You guys did really good though. You guys got 2 out of the 3. But I knew, I was like, all right, if I do Kestodon, I gotta make this lucky. 50 points.
Literally, Odogo Dobodogo Bogo was my main monster armor set for Worlds.
That's right.
And Mitsutsude is one of my favorites from Rise. So, although I don't think it's from Rise, is it?
Mitsutsude came in Generation.
Yeah, that's the name of the demon. Yeah.
Anyways, I don't
you
know,
were really close though. You got something Dawn, which is better than what I would have said had I been a contestant on this episode.
Yeah, as soon as you start getting into the small monster territory is when this gets foggy for a lot of these for me.
That was mean of you.
Like you could have like a flying, you could have like a flying insect. To my mind, it'd be like, oh god, is it a
I've thought about it,
or is it a Vespa?
Yeah, those are definitely higher in points. So the harder the question, and yeah, I also wanted to change the point system because in the first episode, like, you know, if you get 1 point each, then it's not you can't, like, when you tally it all up, it's gonna be easy to figure out who wins. Whereas this way, like, we have a range of points and we can kind of see, like, you know, where everyone kind of lies in a different, like, where everyone will fall eventually, but you can't really, like, unless you have a pen and paper at the time and you're listening, you can't really guess who's gonna end up where.
It also makes it so that you can have more difficult questions worth more points.
Exactly. So I think the change is good. It seemed fun. Yeah, I like the pen and paper reveal as well as Ryan's his texts, which are
feel free to screenshot that for the edit if you need to.
Definitely, I'm gonna throw it in there too. Yeah, he's 2 for 2 over here with those answers. Yeah. Of course, if you hear that sound, it means that we are all ready to head into our topic of the show. And today's topic is, how did you come up to choose your main weapon and what are the pros and cons of it in battle? Ryan, let's go ahead and start with you.
Me or Brian? Me?
It's you now.
It's deja vu. Yeah, Ryan.
With a B?
With a Y or an I?
I guess I'll go first because I ruined it. I guess it's supposed to be Ryan. I don't know. Greatsword, like we talked earlier, Greatsword's just an iconic weapon. It just seemed the same way that people think Cloud is cool. You know, you just see a big old freaking sword and you're like, yeah. Also, the monsters are huge too, so it feels like the only appropriate tool, right? Definite steep learning curve. Lots of failure of just getting absolutely bodied, especially by faster, you know, Nagakugas and Rajangs and things that bounce around a lot. And, you know, but Greatsword it is. And I've deviated a little bit over the years when the meta has like shifted hard away from it. Like I definitely tried light bowgun for the first time in Worlds. And then tried a little bit in the beta for Wilds. But I was still pretty true to it in Rise for the most part.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about Greatsword being kind of difficult to learn, even though it is probably it's probably one of the most appealing aesthetically weapons to use. You know, seeing a monster and having a giant sword, plus having, like, you know, we are ingrained to think that giant swords are cool, like from Final Fantasy and on. So it's interesting that, and then also we talk about earlier in the show that the first weapon that they use kind of as like a litmus test or as like the setting stone is the Greatsword. And so it's just kind of interesting to think that like the weapon that probably a lot of newcomers would come to start their game with would be a kind of difficult one. Just not in the sense that it's hard to understand that attacking it will get big damage, but kind of figuring out maneuvering or movement options with that weapon as well, as opposed
used to be real rough. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It used to be real rough.
Yeah. Is there any, I guess, specific decorations or skills that you like running with your, with I guess the great sword?
What you'd expect: sharpening, earplugs, because I'm usually like right underneath them. Right, that's a big one. Guard. Those are the big ones for sure. Yeah, again, earplugs and sharpening plus are usually my go-tos, just because I want to be able to whack these guys for as long as possible, especially because again, whetstone sharpening didn't used to be as easy as it was, and I would just like hide in the corner for just 2 seconds, hoping I didn't aggro it too much,
Yeah.
But then I'd try to jump back in, or if I was like first to charge in with the big sword, because usually, when you're not fully engaged in the fight yet, like it's not moving too much, it's just kind of meandering around the area. So, trying to get a shot off usually means that I'm like right underneath it when the battle starts and they do the freaking screech. So if I'm like trying to charge up a big, triple hit with the with the great sword, then there's no worse feeling than getting screeched out of that animation.
Right. All right. Yeah. Well, what about you, Max? I mean, you're known as the hunting horn elitist, but
so I'm not as pure of a hunting horn man as I might like, given my title here, but
the deception.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Monster Hunting Horn since I like was in Freedom Unite
on PSP,
but I think it's just like I really like the variety in songs, because every hunting horn has its own the note sounds, and then when you do a recital, it has its own music that plays, and it's just I really enjoy sort of collecting the hunting horns.
As a person who has literally no inkling of of hunting horns, I did not know that information. Like, so they have like their own tunes, and when you say like recital, you mean
so for example, like the Basarios and the Zinogre have like guitar hunting. They look like guitars.
Whoa.
And so like whenever for each different attack, like whether you do because the hunting horn, when you use it, you have 3 different note types. Whether you hit like on controller, it'd be like triangle, circle, or triangle plus circle. And that was like different attacks. So each one of those generates a different color note. And each hunting horn has 3 different color notes that are in like the pool that you use. And you line up the notes of different colors to get access to songs that you play. And using like a recital, which then gives the party the effects of the buff. And so each note has its own sort of sound. And when you do a recital, it plays like a little solo. So it's kind of like you have like I don't remember the name of it, but there's like one of the joke-ish weapons is like a mushroom, like a saxophone. And so you get kind of like little jazz music while you're smacking people with it, or you get like the conga will have little bongo drums. And so it's just kind of fun, to smack stuff. And I like the utility of using it as like a support weapon, where you can still get some damage in. Hunting horn usually has pretty good mobility, since when you play your self buff song, you get like a pretty nice mobility, like speed increase when you have your weapon unsheathed, and it also like gives you ESP so you don't bounce. And so you have pretty good mobility. You're cruising when you're running around. It's not like other weapons where like greatsword, where it's like you have to put your weapon away every second. Like you can just stroll around.
So, and what would you say is like the learning curve for like just a straight up new person to this game?
So it depends on which game you're playing. Hunting Horn was vastly different in Monster Hunter Rise. It was almost entirely reworked, and there's almost no learning curve. Like you can just mash buttons, because the strength of Hunting Horn is that you move fast and you have good utility, but the weakness is that your attacks the animations are really long. Like you have good mobility and you can sort of get into position, but it's hard to take advantage of those openings, because all of your damage is basically in your recitals. Like you can do like your little notes, like your little side swing, and your downward slam has decent damage, but a lot of your actual damage comes from you playing the recital and then hitting the monster while you're jumping and swinging. But it's like a long animation that roots you in place. And so depending on the monster, it's very hard. Like I don't like using in solo against a lot of monsters like a Rajang.
Oh, well,
because
yeah.
like you need to use your recitals to get the effects of the songs that you're playing. So it's like you're sitting there with the notes, like you have it queued up, like, oh, I have the attack up song, defense up, and stamina reduction song, but it's like, but I don't have time to play it. Like, if you're just running in circles around the monster, like, when is it my turn to play the song? So it's like, so your damage kind of falls off a cliff, and a lot of the damage, weapons damage output, like if you look at the raw damage numbers compared to other weapons of the same tier, it's usually like 20 lower. It's lower to compensate for the fact that it has a on a lot of these weapons. So it's kind of like,
sorry, you kind of cut out during that last bit.
Well, the damage of the hunting horn is not going to clear any, it's not going to win any speed runs compared to some of the other weapons. And so the damage isn't amazing, and it's kind of hard to take advantage of windows of an opportunity to attack certain monsters. I think that's where that's where the skill ceiling is trying to figure out when to use what, because there's a lot of weapons, it's pretty easy when you start out with, because monsters start out with big windows, but it becomes much harder. And especially as the monsters themselves, going through the generations, are more versatile, they're more adaptive, they turn faster, they attack faster. As the game is sped up, I feel like it's harder to take advantage of windows in general. And I'm not as clear on exactly how the hunting horns plays in Monster Hunter Wilds. I know they've added a bunch of new mechanics, like you can drop a little buff puddle on the ground, and there's some other new things that I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak on yet, but it's definitely has big strengths and also big weaknesses, I think.
Is there any certain decorations, like specific ones that you like running, or is there like a general decoration set you just like running with it?
Maestro, Horn Maestro is usually a pretty good choice because it increases the duration of buff songs, and also, if you're using a hunting horn that has healing on it, it increases the healing effect of those songs, I believe. And so usually in previous games, it's like a one slot decoration. It's easy to slap on. It's kind of just like a gimme that you might as well use if you're running hunting horn. Other than that, I kind of go for the cookie cutter offensive build. I'll go for the attack up, critical eye, weakness exploit. I liked having some level of comfiness in the set, so I might throw in evasion.
Yeah.
Evade window, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've always whenever I see, like, whenever we play, and then I'm always finding out, oh, I have like an attack buff or something, and Max is just over there just like looking like Squirtle, just ding.
I'm not I want to clarify that I do not corner horn.
You would be known.
That's true. He's up in there.
I walk in there, I'm in there.
Yeah. It's definitely a sign of a seasoned horner. But yeah, I've always been kind of interested in learning hunting horn. I definitely think I'm gonna venture out and try a little bit more. I think with each I guess sequential title, I would kind of go further and further into trying new weapons. But Brian, like, I think we have already kind of
the new system allows you to quick swap stuff. So this is the perfect opportunity to have your secondary.
Definitely. But yeah, I think we kind of hinted at it earlier during I guess the news segment. But Brian, being our resident Lance main, like, how did you come up with choosing the Lance?
Why did you say that so shitty? Lance main.
Lance? What do you mean? He said it fine.
I'm battling a cold. I've been muting myself throughout this entire episode. Leave me alone.
It sounded like you were like dunking on him.
I'm trying not to fucking choke. I'm gonna mute myself now. Brian, go.
No talk. Yes, I am our resident Lance main for the group. Something that's been a weapon of choice for a long time. I think I started with Monster Hunter Tri when they made Lance just god tier for maybe not the first time, but I would think so. They added countering to its weapon set. So being able to be very effective at not only blocking, but knowing when to see an attack coming and countering it, and allowing yourself to be rewarded for really understanding a monster's moveset. I really like the weapon because it was a very safe weapon for me and for a lot of people, where if you're learning a monster's moveset, you can kind of turtle a little bit, and you can effectively just kind of take some hits, watch the moves that are coming, and as you become more confident with the monster, you can start converting some of those blocks into counters, knowing as you get more comfortable with the openings between those attacks. So the weapon used to be very slow in the beginning. It's since, I think, especially with Worlds and beyond, they've added a lot more mobility with it. You can now do some guard advances. You can chain those advances with your little side hops and side steps, as well as chaining some dashes, which I think we've loved to cue our initial D music when we get a good dash going on the lance and just clearing some serious distance.
Right.
So I've really, really liked the weapon. I'm excited to see what changes are going to be made to it with the Wilds release. There were some unhappy folks with some of the changes in the open beta test. And we did hear that it was going to get some major additions and kind of maybe reworks with the full game. So I didn't mind some of the changes that they made. It was a little confusing.
Specific?
Yeah, they kind of got rid of the counter ability, which I was mentioning being such an important thing. They effectively just made it so that you could guard at any point between your attacks and allow yourself to kind of just continue to chain attacks. But there was not really a way to just hold a counter with your own timing of choice and just waiting for an attack to come in. So they're going to be bringing the counter system back in and allowing more moves to be kind of a little bit more forgiving in regards to its timing. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. And I think they also need to buff some of the motion values. I think the weapon was quite weak in the open beta test 1 and then 2 as well, as we'll see. So, but I'm looking forward to using it again and going on full Turtle Squad. So it's a nice weapon.
As someone who's always like probably underneath the monster at some point, it's always funny to be seeing you right next to me. Just I feel like you don't move, like your feet are just kind of set in stone, and you
Very
like
much.
just seeing the small, just like little stabbing motion. It's very reminiscent of just kind of like ooh, what's this green monster? Help me out here. With the chef's knife from Final Fantasy.
Oh gosh,
Tonberry.
The Tonberry. It's very much that, where it's like, oh, he's just gonna walk up to you and then he's just gonna poke you real slow, and then you're just fucking mega dead. That's what I imagine being the monster like fighting Lance means.
And it lets you stick pretty close to. I was gonna say it lets you stick pretty close to the monster, so I like that aggression that you can have. Is you're just right on top of it the entire time and you don't back down. So
yeah,
me and Brian just underneath the whole time, just swinging away.
Now question, what is it about the lance that you prefer over a gun lance?
Primarily, yes. I mean, I've been very excited to try more gun lance. I think I might need to do that, seeing just some of the changes they made to Wilds. It looks like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think primarily my big thing is that while the firepower is a lot nicer, there is more of a technical side to gun lance that I think Lance doesn't necessarily have. So it's a little bit easier and a safer choice for, at least for me, in regards to managing different mechanics at one point, sharpness and all of that.
Yeah.
And shelling.
I will say that gun lance is sort of joins Lance in terms of it technically has a guard point on your quick reload now. So it's not exactly a counter, but it's sort of reminiscent to, you could be chaining pokes and then do your quick reload, and then you're essentially blocking during that animation.
Wow.
So it has a similar loop now, and I know that that feature was added in Monster Hunter Rise as a switch skill, and has now been brought back in sort of the core functionality of the weapon. I am a gun lance is like one of my main side weapons, and I'm pretty excited. All it needs is blast dash from Monster Hunter Rise.
Oh, that looks wild.
Blast dash plus the guard counter, and it'd be the perfect weapon.
What's
so
blast dash?
It's like it was one of the mobility switch skill where you.
Was that where you ride the fucking gun lance in the air?
So you hit it behind you and you blast yourself forward.
While Brian was talking about it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask him about gun lance, and then I'm gonna clip in post or like just people driving around like flying in midair, the blast hatch. Okay,
so
yeah,
cool.
because that's the only reason I kind of want to pick up a gun lance, just because that looks hilarious and fun.
Because I mean, if you look at Lance, like Lance has better mobility than the gun lance. because you have like all the guard advances and you have the charge, and Gunlance doesn't really have anything other than like when you have like your forward thrust, you kind of run forward a couple steps, but you're really like way more of a turtle on Gunlance than you are on Lance.
That's a good point. I'm excited to try it though.
Yeah.
Is there anything you like to run specifically, decoration wise or skill wise, with your Lance setup?
Yeah.
Did I say that good enough for you, Ryan?
For Lance as a Lance main?
Better.
Yeah. Lance is definitely one of those weapons that does require some core skills to function much better. The big one is going to be Offensive Guard, which is a new addition to World that allows you to gain a upwards of 15 to 20%, I believe, maybe even 30% damage buff for a certain amount of time if you're able to block an attack very quickly. So if you do like that perfect block where the window is really close to being perfect effectively within a few moments of frames, then it gives you a damage bonus for probably 7 or 8 seconds.
Wow.
That works with counters as well. So any type of shield kind of animation will allow your offensive guard to proc, and it is very, very powerful. Guard is usually a required skill as well. Otherwise, your blocks and counters will get pushed back when you're blocking heavier attacks on different monsters, and that slows down your counter timing. And then a big one, depending on the game, but realistically in the last few titles, has been, because of that shield jewel, guard up. There are a lot of attacks in Iceborne in particular, but in World as well. Beam attacks, certain elemental attacks, Kieran's kind of thunder. If you do not have the shield jewel to get guard up, you can actually not block a lot of the attacks. And with the kind of lower mobility of a lance, you can't really sheath your weapon super fast, and you're going to just tank a hit even through your shield. So those are the 3 core skills: guard, guard up, and offensive guard.
Nice. I think for me, I've always had kind of an identity crisis with the weapons throughout each game. I think I've of course started off with a greatsword just because aesthetically it looks cool and stuff like that. It wasn't really until Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate that I kind of created a build for it that I really loved. I think one of my builds definitely I had a dragon damage kind of greatsword, which I think from my understanding, greatswords are kind of best at just raw damage. So if you use like an elemental version, it kind of takes a bit off like your raw damage. But so like one of the some of the skills that I liked running on it was quick sheath, so I could just get the hell out of there. I always love running evasion, just getting more invincibility frames, or evade window, getting a wider getting a wider dodge out of just the normal animation. Of course, when you get really good at the game, you can just use the iframes that you kind of have built in. So but you know, for like people that aren't as good as that, getting the extra frames in there kind of kick in. But things I really loved about that build was I had focus, like it was like a focus build, so my charges would be I would charge a level 3 slash pretty instantaneously, and then crit draw, that was like my favorite. Like, so I had it to the point where like almost each draw, like I would say 9 out of 10 times I would get a nice crit hit on top of a triple charge. So like whenever we were towards the end of a fight and there was like a sleeping monster, we're like, okay, let's go ahead and put all our barrel bombs down, and then I'm just gonna crit charge this thing, and we'll get like crit draw it, and then we'll just get this massive amount of damage. Usually would be quest ending for that. I know
That's the best type of greatsword hit.
Yeah. And it was just fun because it was like, okay, if I'm going to be taking, because you don't really just keep swinging your great sword out there because you're just going to be locked into these really slow animations. So it was like, okay, crit draw seems pretty smart. Quick sheath seems pretty smart because I could just get my quick, heavy damage in and out and then be able to put away my weapon and get my dodge roll going. I never thought about putting guard on there. I'm not sure why. but I don't know. I guess I never guard in anything, so that makes sense why I don't really use a lance or anything with a shield.
Evasion is definitely my instinct when using greatsword too, so I don't blame you that much. But I have been definitely trying to get better at actually tanking damage because you totally can, you know.
Yeah.
But my instinct is to just roll out of the way.
I feel like greatsword's a kind of a totally different beast now from 3 Ultimate, because 3 Ultimate they didn't have the true charge slash yet, I think, and the addition of that I think in World has really changed the game since. It used to be optimal, to sheath your weapon after every hit and then just go triple charge. All the damage now has been moved on to, you have to do your first hit and then you kind of go into your second hit, second charge, and then your true charge is happening on the third hit. And that's where all the big damage is. So I think the critical draw doesn't apply to any after that. But I think you can probably still play over that same build.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably could.
And also there's the added fact that if you press circle and triangle at the same time, you get to launch your friends into the air while they're trying to carve at the end of the quest.
Is that still in Wilds though? I know they're taking out a lot of friendly fire stuff.
I think they're taking it out.
Oh, come on.
Or it's gonna have a different impact. It's gonna flinch you, but not send you. Yeah.
I think that's lame.
I know.
Yeah.
That's definitely part of it. I think
it's part of the charm.
Yeah.
That it's not too negatively impacting. It should stay.
I think it's always a fun moment, like when you launch your friend and they're like, "Oh my god!" and reflexively swing at the monster and they get a mount. It's like, "Oh, I was totally
exactly." Oh man, I wish we had some B-roll of that so I could put it in there. But yeah, I think after Greatsword, I kind of messed around with dual blades a little bit. I do like inflicting. For me, I personally like doing paralysis builds. I think paralysis is just so cool, especially when you get like a clean 5 seconds to just absolutely destroy a monster as a team. I feel like it's super helpful. But I think when we hit Monster Hunter World, maybe it was 4 Ultimate. When was the Charge Blade introduced?
I think that was 4 Ultimate.
4
Ultimate. Yeah, I think that's when I became a Charge Blade main, and it was. I definitely didn't actually really learn how to play the Charge Blade until Rise, so the most recent Monster Hunter title, because it was so different mechanically. Of course, I think Gunblade kind of has this mechanic, or Gunlance. Does it have a file system? Or
you have shells.
You have shells. Okay, so it's definitely more. There's more to it than just stabbing something like a lance, or a sword and shield, or it's definitely you kind of have to read the manual on how to use the fucking thing, right? To get
it definitely is more complex combo route. Yeah. It's kind of like switch axe has become a lot more technical.
Yeah,
I think, right.
And yeah, so for me, who's usually the path of least resistance is easiest for me to pick up. For me to use something so complicated as a Charge Blade, where you have to have it in sword and shield mode, and then you have to build up your files. So then you have, when your files are full, you shove it back into your shield and juice up your shield. So now you have a juiced up shield, and then get your files again, and now you have a juiced up sword, and then you have to do all these complicated things. Also, trying not to cart, and then, but the payoff is so huge when you get these gigantic swinging you'll hit this monster and there's lightning exploding everywhere. It is just it is exactly what Greatsword, what gets your heart rate going for the Greatsword with a giant slash, but then let's add hella effects and shit going on to it. It is the ultimate payoff for me when you could just unleash all your files and juices onto the monster.
You get that nice little camera zoom out right as you're about to go into the elemental discharge.
Yeah, the elemental discharge. It's that's also what they added. They added I think all the rest of the weapon types, because I don't think they had the 14 weapon types in Monster Hunter now. They now have Charge Blade, and
nice.
Oh my god, being able to play it so much easier on your phone.
Oh, that must be nice.
You get that adrenaline rush right there. But yeah, so for I can't remember what I really run. I think I just kind of have like my own. I definitely always do some sort of evasion. I think when World came out, I was mainly running like the Gyros tree. So I still like doing like paralysis builds. All the small like hits while you're building up your files and stuff, all the quick hits. That's where I would build up like all the paralysis stuff. And then if they ever get paralyzed, I'll have all my files charged up to do elemental discharge. And I think that thing was a beast. It's lots of fun. It's definitely a more complicated weapon to use, and but it's definitely rewarding if you like seeing like those big damage numbers or like giant animations and stuff like that. Just like the greatsword, it's definitely a fun one to pick up. But I think the last weapon that I actually ended up using was I started using the bow in Rise. Yeah, I started picking the bow up. It's fun. It's really fun. I probably am doing a lot more damage than, I guess, I'm doing more damage per second with the bow than I had been with like a charge blade, something heavier. The animations are absolutely insane now as the entries go on. So I'm like flipping and dipping and jumping 20 feet in the air and doing all these things. And yeah, the bow is really fun. I think last time I played Rise, I was working on some sort of meta build for it, but I don't think I ended up completing it. And then I think I dipped a foot into longsword, and now during story, like all the story and campaign stuff, I think I'm more of a longsword main now, just because the same thing, like the animations are super cool. You go into like samurai mode where you kind of like have like a face off, and
well, longsword was meta as hell when it came out in Worlds. I mean, it was very popular.
It's always been super popular. I never knew about it. I was like, oh, it's just a longer sword. Like, who cares?
I mean, it's great sword adjacent. You know, it's there's a little bit more technicality to it, and more like you can maneuver a little bit better. But similar concept, big sword, go smash. You know.
I mean, this one is it's definitely more anime inspired.
Yeah, you're one of many of the longsword fans. I'm thinking of like the Buzz Lightyear meme where you're in the box like, man, longsword is so cool, and then you like zoom out and there's the whole aisle full of longsword.
Yeah,
wasn't it like 30% of the player base or something? Like,
I would not be surprised.
A massive percent of the player base uses longsword.
It was ridiculous.
It's the golden child for sure.
It's fucking cool. Yeah. It's for good reason. It looks cool as shit. You get to live out like the cool samurai version. Like, it's
I will
just
not
so
take
cool.
this great sword slander.
The great sword slander.
I know we're pretty butthurt about. I think it was in World we were talking about how the longsword has better defensive options than like lance. It's just like
the counters.
The best weapon in the game.
It's pretty OP.
It's so cool looking. Yeah. I mean, with 14 different weapon types, there's something for everybody in this, and that's kind of the point of this main topic is, for the newer people out there, it's just kind of, see that there's something for everybody, and you can pretty much play the way you want to play.
Like the insect glaive.
Hey, I wouldn't take the insect glaive is good.
I'm just saying, it's like there's some weird stuff out there. It's not all just like big sword, small sword, big stick, small stick. I mean, I guess the insect glaive is kind of a stick.
It's a lot of stick.
It's a lot of
curious.
Bug and stick, which isn't really a weapon, but it is.
I'm curious if they're ever going to bring Tonfas and the Magnet Spike into the mainline entries.
Go to weapons.
Is that from Frontier?
Those are they had 2 new weapon types in Frontier.
Wow.
Then Magnet Spike, Tonfas is about as you can expect it. Magnet Spike is like crazy. You check out some footage for that. It's like you're flying all over the place in the air.
Magnets. Tonfas. Wouldn't Tonfas kind of be like closer to a dual blade set?
I mean, kind of. Mm-hmm. It's different.
I mean, there's definitely a mobility boost, even though they took the wire bugs away. It's like, your dual blade, like critical attack. What's it called now? What's the
focus strike?
Focus strike.
Mm-hmm.
Just clips of people like starting that thing, and then it flies
Yeah.
away, and then they're just like stuck to the monster. You're just floating around. You're like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to try some of a bunch of different weapon types in the Monster Hunter beta in Monster Hunter beta.
Are you British?
And in the full game. But yeah, I would like to know what our viewers or our fellow hunters would be rocking in their sets, and go ahead and leave that in the comment section below. But that brings us to the end of this episode of the Palibros. Brian, Max, and Ryan, I want to thank you guys again for coming through for another episode. And of course, fellow hunters, I want to thank you for watching this episode. We hope you enjoyed the show, and don't forget that you can get each and every episode on YouTube and Spotify. So until next time, happy hunting.
Take care.